One of the biggest misconceptions held by men who believe in marriage is that the old strategy of going to church to find a wife will save them from the woes and chaos of modern dating. But unfortunately, someone has to tell these men that religion will not save them or anyone from anything. And this is because the average churchgoer today is not who they say they are, and they don't live by the religious principles they claim to embody. They are just a hypocrite who uses religion as a mask to hide their vile and malicious personality. The best example of this was a woman named Aliana, who was in one of Fresh and Fit's recent live streams. The self-proclaimed Christian is apparently 25 years old and is from the state of Georgia. She didn't waste any time before highly waving her red flags. When Myron was asking her some introductory questions, she let it slip that she had been drinking a lot.
I've been drinking a lot.
She then tried backtracking after realizing what she just did was trashy and went against her religious convictions, or rather, her claimed religious convictions.
Not that much.
Right after this, she does something that seems to be a recurrent theme in her character, and that is to minimize her bad behavior by signaling virtue.
What do you mean? Jesus made wine.
For those that don't know, the Jesus made wine excuse is often given by many hypocritical Christians who drink more than they should. The rationale behind the excuse is that since the figurehead of Christianity made a fermented beverage for people to drink, it is therefore not a sin to drink. And while this might be partly true, it does not excuse or even permit overindulgence.
I've been drinking a lot.
Minimizing bad behavior is a major red flag because even the worst of deeds can be both minimized and rationalized. And yes, it might be fair to say that she was just joking, but I doubt you will think so as she continues exhibiting more red flags. I will also be talking about the fallible reasons she gave for divorcing her husband, but more of that later. So since this is a dating podcast, questions about her relationship status and birth control were asked, and she couldn't resist the opportunity to signal her virtue, but along with this, she would set herself up to being exposed as a liar. She told Chris she was single, and when Myron asked her if she was on birth control, she could have simply said no, but she says this instead.
Actually, I don't have sex, so.
This prompted our former federal agent to probe for congruency, so he pressed her a little bit, and this is when she contradicts herself.
When's the last time you smashed then, out of curiosity?
It is none of your business.
There you go. Yeah. I know that's right.
So that means yesterday. All right, fantastic.
No, it's absolutely not yesterday.
All right, was it last week?
Nope.
Myron, por favor, don't ask me questions like that.
Is it longer than 6 months?
For sure.
Okay. Is it longer than a year?
No. I was in a relationship.
So somewhere between 6 to 12.
No, it's like 2 months.
Allegedly.
Like I was just in a relationship, guys.
Well, no, I said was it longer than 6 months, and you said yes.
Then
So
I
it's
just
less.
lied. I lied straight on the podcast. And look at me. I lied. At least I'm honest about lying. Like at least, you know?
There are a couple of transgressions here, with the biggest being that she obliviously admitted to be having sex out of wedlock, which is something that is against her faith. The second issue is being caught in a lie while trying to cover up her sexual sins. The third issue is trying to minimize lying by saying that at least she is honest about it. But the truth is that Myron actually caught her while trying to do it. It is also a form of virtue signaling in her case to claim that she is an honest person. I genuinely believe that she is someone who lies frequently by omission, evasion, or even distorting the truth. Robert Greene, who is the author of the 48 Laws of Power, has a saying that goes, "Nobody ever does anything once." He goes on to say that people leave traces of who they truly are, and therefore, if someone did something bad or they have mistreated someone, they will do it again. You also want to be mindful of the principle that goes, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So don't ever think people like Aliana here only rationalize and minimize wrongful behavior in one aspect of their life and not in another. I say this because some of you listening to this could be thinking to yourselves that this rationalizations and minimizations are trivial. But I am here to tell you that this is who she is, and she is about to help prove me right. In a different segment of the stream, Myron put forth the argument that men are way more empathetic than women. Some of the women on the panel vehemently argued the opposite, which was to say that women are much more empathetic. But then, an hour later, Aliana contradicted the women's position and helped prove Myron's point by saying this.
I'm not empathetic
not
to
to
men.
your
I
kid.
will not lie. I am not empathetic to men. I don't care about their feelings. I do not care. You're a man. You be a man.
Misogyny.
So, yes, definitely. I don't know if that's misogyny.
So that's why I'm making the argument that I make the argument that women aren't empathetic because y'all don't understand us or give a fuck, and that's fine. But we have to understand you guys though.
Absolutely. Did I just not say, like, when a man cries, it makes me dry? I do not care if a man cries. I do not care if you just lost your job. I do not care if you lost a leg.
But you just agreed with the teacher before about women being more empathetic.
Yeah, but I am
and
not.
Emotional intelligence and all that.
I understand what she is saying, but I personally, I'm not that empathetic. I'm not empathetic to men. And I know that because my relationships have shown that.
Well, what she just said is both heartless and not in accordance with the Christian faith. And although it is alarming in of itself, what's interesting is her ability to constantly see some form of good in her vile behavior and attitude.
At least I'm honest to myself. I know who I am.
According to her, what she just said isn't as bad because she is at least honest about it. If she was truly a Christian, instead of the hypocrite she is, she would know that there are many sections of the Bible that teach empathy. I am not a Christian, but I have read the Bible on the book of Romans where it says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, and mourn with those who mourn." This is a command that encourages both empathy and sympathy. Both empathy and sympathy seem to be very important traits in Christianity as they are very recurrent throughout the Bible. The 4th chapter of the book of Hebrews embraces that Jesus turning from a godly being to a human made him more empathetic. The scripture reads, "This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for he faced all of the same testing we did, yet he did not sin." It is to walk in direct contradiction and hypocrisy to claim that you are a practicing Christian and yet think it is okay to profess a lack of empathy. It is also an outright lie to claim to love people, and yet you lack empathy for them simply because love and empathy are inseparable. The Jesus that she claims to follow showed love through empathy. Another justification she gives for her heartlessness is that she is not Jesus Christ.
I'm not Christ. I never said that I was Christ. Okay? I said that I follow Jesus. I never said that I am like Christ. I am Christ. I'm not perfect. He's the only person that has not sinned.
For such a poor justification, I have this to say. There are many people around the world who have both their empathy and sympathy intact, and they are not Jesus Christ. This obviously means one doesn't have to be Christ to be empathetic, and therefore what she just gave is a pathetic excuse. It is apparent that the men in her life hurt her deeply and have caused her some form of emotional trauma.
Because that's why men are such pussies. That's why they're such bitches. Because we're all here like, oh,
I feel like
look
you're
at
doing
this,
the
look
TV
at that,
thing
look
right
at
now.
that.
Like, I feel like
But in accordance with her faith, being hurt is not reason enough to go against the tenets of Christianity. And since she didn't read her Bible, I did it for her. The book of 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 21 to 23 reads, "To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly." A lack of empathy always creates problems in relationships of any kind. This is because a lack of empathy is a sign of selfishness, and these two traits are also signs of a lack of love and care. People who lack empathy have very little care how their own actions affect others, and these can be seen by their lack of remorse or accountability when they are found to have done something wrong. Aliana's lack of empathy and accountability explains precisely why she is a divorced single mother who struggles with relationships. A romantic partner isn't going to stick around or even treat you with love, care, and respect if you don't reciprocate any of it. The Ukrainian woman sitting across the table tried in her broken English to explain that how men treat women is a direct reflection of the qualities exhibited by that particular woman.
Peacemaker.
I understand why you so like that. Because you invest so much money how to be more sexy, how to do better sex, but you not invest money to improve your brain, to improve your soul, to rise your spirit, because you have nothing to propose to the man. Because of this man treat you like a shit, because you have nothing to give to him. Because with the right woman, the man will be different. You know, I met many men who can be very bad with you, but he will be completely different with me, and it will be the same man. So from you depends how man is, which side of him he's showing to you from you. So if man abusing you, doing something bad, so think not wrong something with him, something wrong with you. You need to improve it.
Wait, so
No, definitely.
Ukraine.
You definitely have to take accountability for like yeah.
Aliana is also newly single, and her recent breakup wasn't even from her ex-husband. On the other hand, the reasons she gave for divorcing her husband give us a glimpse into why religion won't save the institution of marriage. Fresh and Fit's Big Mo put forth a question asking the women what makes them angry at their man in a relationship. And when it was Aliana's turn to answer, she helped confirm that she was indeed having sex out of wedlock.
I have a lot of sex with the person that I'm with.
Wow.
If that's the answer. Yeah, if that's the question, yeah.
This prompted Fresh to ask, why was a Christian having sex outside of the confinements of marriage? And this is when she gets evasive.
You're Christian, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely a follower of Jesus Christ, yeah.
So you having sex before marriage?
No, my first husband, which is who I have my child with, was my first you know what I mean? Everything.
Okay, so only when you're committed to the person you have sex.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting how she mumbled and didn't directly answer Fresh's question, which required a simple yes or no, by the way. She also carefully chose to talk about her situation with her ex-husband, because this was probably the only time she obeyed the command to not have sex outside of marriage. Noticed how I said, probably? This is because that too could be a lie. According to psychological scientists, when liars lie, they tend to waffle and use vague language. Hence,
no, my first husband, which is who I have my child with, was my first you know what I mean? Everything.
This is also why she gave a definitive yes when asked if she only has sex when there is commitment. This is because the word commitment can mean a dozen other things, but we have already established that it doesn't mean marriage in this case.
I'm in a long-term relationship.
Anyway, after Fresh was done probing, Myron came in to ask why she divorced her husband.
So wait, you're divorced?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been divorced for?
3 years.
Who initiated it?
Me.
Damn, why?
Stupid.
I think the real reason is because he could not lead me. He could not lead me, and I could not follow him. He had his morals, the way that he led. He was young, also. Like he's only 1 year older than me. So I'm at that time when I had my child, I was 21. He was 22. He didn't know any better, and I forgive him. I love him. He is a great father, but I just could not follow him.
So you never cheated. You just didn't trust him from a leadership perspective.
Exactly.
It's ironic how a non-practicing Muslim specifically asked if her husband committed adultery. This is ironic because one of the two clear grounds for divorce in Christianity is if a spouse has committed adultery. The second ground is if the other partner is a non-believer and they have chosen to leave. But this second stipulation, too, doesn't apply in her favor because she is the one who initiated her divorce, which effectively means that she completely disregarded her religion. Matthew 5 verse 32 reads, "But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery." The second stipulation for divorce is in the first book of Corinthians. The chapter is 7 and the verse is 15, and I quote, "But if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the believing husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called you to live in peace." Close quote. This second scripture is actually poetic because Aliana is the non-believer here. Anyways, true practicing Christians are vehemently against divorce, even if the Christian grounds for it exist. They tend to encourage a period of separation, repentance, and counseling if there is any ill treatment of one spouse by the other. Aliana, in accordance with her faith, left for the most frivolous and selfish of reasons. She has also proven to be completely clueless about her professed faith, but has somehow adapted certain mechanisms that help her avoid accountability for not complying with her faith. The words "follower of Christ" are what Christians have recently adopted in order to shy away from the word Christian. This is because being labeled a Christian has a negative stigma, since people associate Christians with hypocrisy and judgmentalism. Interestingly, Aliana has displayed the very aforementioned negative traits, and in her case, calling herself a follower of Christ is a tact to avoid being held accountable for not living by Christian principles, which effectively brings us back to her being a hypocrite. The problem these followers of Christ are going to have is that anyone who has a bit of knowledge about religion knows that follower of Christ are just substitute words for Christian. After all, you can't follow Christ without being a Christian. Aliana says that he grew up Christian, but didn't follow Christ up until recently, but this in of itself is a contradiction. The word Christian is a translation of the Greek word Christianos, which means follower of Christ. Christianos comes from the word Christos, which translates to Christ in the English language and means the anointed one. So in short, one can't grow up Christian and not be a follower of Christ. You are either Christian and follow Christ, or you are not. The 14th chapter of the book of John, verse 6 reads, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Another interesting contradiction we picked up in her story is that when she wasn't a follower of Jesus, which means she wasn't a Christian, she obeyed the commandment to not have sex out of wedlock, but now as a follower of Christ, all it takes to sleep with her is commitment and not a marriage. Another thing we just couldn't pinpoint was whether or not she was telling the truth about her relationship status. In the beginning, she said she was single and hadn't had sex for months, but when she was talking to Tiffany, she expressed being in a long-term relationship and having a lot of sex. It was also cringeworthy and disgusting to listen to her saying that she's saved and wishes to save others, and yet she has no understanding of any biblical concept.
No. To clarify, I grew up Christian, but I was never following Jesus until recently. I never read the Bible at that time. I didn't know who Jesus was. It's until recently that I was like, this is the truth, you know?
You're saved now.
I'm 100% saved, and I mean, I would love to save other people, but that's not a possibility.
That's cool, but
Aliana's lack of accountability, being a liar, and having zero awareness serves as proof that religion has nothing of value it can offer to the men who want to get married. This is because the women in the church are just as vile, malicious, and promiscuous as the women in the secular world. And although there are Christians who remain true to their faith and follow their Bible, as there are outliers in every situation, those Christians are very few and far between. This fortunately marks the end of our video. Take care.